Welcome everyone, join us today as we pay tribute to Doug Parkinson, one of Australia's most distinctive voices, a powerhouse singer whose deep, soulful tone set him apart from the rest. So let's dive in. Douglas John Parkinson, born the 30th of October 1946, in Waratah, New South Wales, Australia. Born in Newcastle, Doug's family later settled on Sydney's northern beaches, where he attended Narrabeen Boys High School. A strong student, he once won a school literature prize and was elected prefect, narrowly missing out on head prefect by a single vote, his own. His father Jack, of German descent, worked as a commercial artist in print advertising, while his Welsh-Irish mother Peggy nurtured a love for music in their home. Doug had two siblings, Bruce and Judy. Music was a constant in his family, particularly musicals, which influenced his career. At 12, he received his first guitar, and his debut performance was at a school dance, playing a surf song. Doug was also a talented athlete, representing his district in cricket and enjoying football and surfing. Among his surfing friends was future champion Nat Young. However, a near-fatal accident ended his surfing day. When knocked unconscious by a board, he nearly drowned and had to be resuscitated by a friend. The incident left him bedridden for 6 months as he recovered. After matriculating in 1963, Doug took on various menial jobs before landing a cadet journalist position at the Daily Telegraph in Sydney in 1964. During the Beatles' Australian tour, he interviewed George Harrison, earning his first front-page story. In 1965, Doug on lead vocals, formed Strings and Things, his first group, which included guitarist David Lee and siblings Sid and Helen Barnes, the children of cricketer Sid Barnes. The band later became TheASound, notable for featuring a female instrumentalist, but they released only one single, Talk About That, in 1966, before disbanding. Later that year, Doug had left journalism to pursue music full-time, joining Sydney instrumental band The Questions. The group had previously backed singer Roland Storm and included musicians who would go on to shape Australian music. During Doug's time, the lineup featured guitarist Ray Burton, bassist and producer Duncan Maguire, and guitarist Billy Green. Many of these musicians would collaborate with Doug throughout his career, with Maguire and Green reuniting with him in later projects, and Burton contributing to his No Regrets in 1973 album. Originally a Shadows-style instrumental group, The Questions recorded an album and a single in 1966 before shifting direction with Doug as frontman. Their new sound, blending psychedelic pop and rock, quickly elevated them. They released several singles, including Sally Go Round the Roses, reaching number 14 in Sydney on July 1967, and entered Hoadley's Battle of the Sounds in 1967, finishing second behind the group. They nearly missed competing after missing the Sydney heats but qualified through the Queensland Country Heats, which inadvertently led to their first interstate shows. A residency at the Candisco in Sydney and a support slot on the Who and the Small Faces' 1968 Australian tour further boosted their profile. However, by early 1968, The Questions had disbanded. Doug, Green, Maguire, and organist Rory Thomas regrouped with drummer Doug Lavery, forming Doug Parkinson in Focus, a name reflecting Doug's rising prominence. Their debut single Advice, in May 1968 didn't chart, but the band's distinct style was established. By August, the lineup had changed again, with Thomas being replaced by Johnny Dick. Despite never releasing a full album, Doug Parkinson in Focus recorded a string of acclaimed singles, many of which were later compiled on the Raven anthology Doug Parkinson In and Out of Focus. In early 1969, Doug received an advance copy of The Beatles' The White Album from a friend in the UK. Enthralled by John Lennon's Dear Prudence, he and his band quickly recorded a stunning cover. Festival Records rejected the track, but EMI embraced it, releasing it on Columbia in May 1969. The single soared up the charts, peaking at number 5 on the Go Set national chart in August and staying there for 4 months. It became Doug's biggest hit, showcasing both his dynamic vocals and the band's tight musicianship. The B-side, This Must Be the End, written by Billy Green, reinforced the release's impact. In a year filled with Australian classics like Smiley, The Real Thing, and Mr. Guy Fawkes, Dear Prudence stood out as one of the most memorable and enduring Beatles covers ever recorded. As the song climbed the charts, Doug Parkinson in Focus tied for first place with the Masters Apprentices in Hoadley's Battle of the Sounds. However, their victory was marred by rumours of misappropriated prize money. Their next single, Today I Feel No Pain, was deemed uncommercial by EMI and quickly withdrawn, though it later resurfaced on the Dear Prudence EP. The band rebounded with Without You in October 1969, a top 5 hit showcasing Green's songwriting and orchestral guitar work. The B-side featured Doug's take on Hair, the title track from the controversial rock musical. With momentum on their side, they seemed poised for continued success. However, in November, Green and Maguire left to join Rush, a short-lived supergroup. Doug swiftly recruited English guitarist Mick Rogers and veteran Les Stayspool, but by early 1970, Rush had disbanded, and Green returned just in time for the Pilgrimage for Pop festival at Arumbar. Maguire rejoined soon after, restoring in focus to its classic lineup. Their final single, Baby Blue Eyes in May 1970, was a standout release, one of Australia's first stereophonic 7-inch singles. Though it reached number 6, by June, Doug and drummer Johnny Dick had been invited to England to join a new band led by former Aztec Vince Maloney. Meanwhile, Green and Maguire teamed up with Leo De Castro in King Harvest. Doug and Johnny joined Maloney's London-based project Fanny Adams, alongside bassist Teddy Toy. Returning to Australia in late 1970, the band was hyped as a game-changer, with Doug boldly proclaiming in Go Set that they would be the best band that ever trod this earth. However, audiences remained skeptical, and the band reportedly failed to deliver on expectations, often being outshone by their support acts. Before leaving the UK, they recorded a self-titled album for MCA, receiving praise in Cashbox magazine and sparking plans for a US tour. However, the band collapsed before this could materialise. The catalyst for their demise was a fire at Sydney's Caesars Disco, which destroyed all their equipment, further hampering their already struggling performances. Doug quit Fanny Adams in early 1971, leaving only their LP as a glimpse of what could have been. One track, Ain't No Loving Left, later appeared on Raven's Golden Miles anthology. With Fanny Adams disbanded, MCA enforced their contract, preventing Doug from recording for 2 years. During this period, he reunited with Green, Maguire, and drummer Mark Kennedy to form a new In Focus lineup. Despite contractual restrictions, they managed to release a single, Purple Curtains, in September 1971, a powerful track featuring Kennedy's driving drumming and Green's heavy, layered sound. The B-side, Pour Out All You've Got, was another riff-heavy showcase of the band's prowess. Doug spent the next 2 years attempting to establish a solo career, hindered by legal roadblocks. In 1972, he welcomed the birth of his second son, Daniel. That August, he finally returned with his first solo single on Polydor, Lonely. Songs from musicals were a recurring theme in Doug's career, and by the early 1970s, he had begun performing in major stage productions. In March 1973, he made his debut in the Australian concert production of Tommy, starring alongside Billy Thorpe, Daryl Braithwaite, Colleen Hewitt, Broderick Smith, Jim Case, and Keith Moon. He then joined the acclaimed Jesus Christ Superstar, replacing Reg Livermore in the role of Herod, where he brought unexpected comic relief. That same year, Doug recorded his first solo album, No Regrets, released in May on Polydor. Backed by an all-star lineup, including John Capek on keyboards, Kevin Borrick, Billy Green, and Jimmy Doyle on guitars, and a powerhouse rhythm section, he delivered a diverse tracklist. The album featured a fresh take on Dear Prudence, Ray Burton's Love Gun, Kevin Borrick's Sweet Rock and Roll, and a cover of The Doors' Light My Fire. It was later reissued in 1980 as part of Polydor's Rock Legends series. Doug then took a creative detour, forming Doug Parkinson's Life Organization, a jazz-influenced big band ahead of its time. Featuring Teddy Toy, Graham Morgan, Warren Ford, and trombonist Bill Motzing, the group leaned into a 1940s sound, years before the style's resurgence in the 80s. Their first single, In the Mood, reached number 36 in Sydney, while their follow-up, Boogie Woogie, failed to chart. The band also backed Doug on his 1973 solo single Love Gun. In 1974, Doug joined WEA Records as New South Wales promotions manager, eager to understand the business side of the industry. He thrived in the role, later becoming A&R manager. That year, he also recorded Cosmic Flash and Do Not Go Gentle, a musical adaptation of Dylan Thomas's poem, for Billy Green's soundtrack to the cult biker film Stone. Footage of their recording session appears in the documentary Stone Forever. Doug returned to performing with a new touring band featuring Mick Leiber, Ray Vanderby, Rod Coe, and the multi-talented Bruno Lawrence, who later became a celebrated actor. In late 1974, Doug scored his first major solo hit with Everlasting Love, recorded with members of Ayers Rock. The single peaked at number 22 in Sydney and number 14 in Melbourne in early 1975. His next two singles, Vanda and Young's Love Is Like a Cloudy Day and Raised on Rock, failed to chart. During this period, Doug became a sought-after jingle singer, recording station IDs and TV themes. However, his work on political ads for both the South Australian Liberal Party and the Federal Labor Party stirred controversy, as some mistook his performances for endorsements, a situation also faced by Renee Geyer. In 1976, Doug appeared in the stage musical Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. The following year, he toured with a reformed version of Sanctuary, formerly the Renee Geyer Band, featuring Mal Logan and the late Big Goose Barry Sullivan. In 1978, he starred in the Australian musical Ned Kelly, written by Reg Livermore and Patrick Flynn. The production received mixed reviews, praised by some, panned by others, including critic Shirley Stott Despoja. That same year, Doug entered one of the most successful phases of his rock career, forming the Southern Star Band with longtime collaborators Duncan Maguire and Mark Kennedy, plus Frank Esler Smith on keyboards and Jim Gannon on guitar. Gannon was later replaced by a rising star Tommy Emmanuel. Blending soul funk jazz rock and R&B, the Southern Star Band was widely regarded as one of Australia's top ensembles, though mainstream success remained elusive. Some blamed radio's lack of support for local acts. Guitarist Keith Kerwin joined in September 1979, and during their 4-year run, the band released 4 singles: The Hungry Years in July 1978, I'll Be Around in January 1979, In My Life in April 1979, and You Ain't Going Nowhere Without Me in September 1979. I'll Be Around became a fan favorite, reaching number 22 in March 1979. Their album of the same name enjoyed steady sales and airplay, particularly on Double J, but failed to crack the top 40. That year, the band also supported Bob Marley and the Wailers on their Australian tour. In 1980, Doug continued touring and released 2 solo singles, Arcade, the theme for a short-lived TV series, and Under the Influence of Love, through Festival. He also made his acting debut in The Young Doctors. By 1981, the Southern Star Band had disbanded, and Doug signed with CBS Records, forming the Doug Parkinson Band with Dave Richard and Tim Piper on guitars, George Limbitis on bass, and Adrian Payne on drums. Over the next 2 years, he released 7 singles, including Small Talk, a cover of The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore, which reached number 18, Solitaire, and Better Keep Your Hands Off My Potential New Girlfriend. In March 1983, he released his second solo album, Heartbeat to Heartbeat, and later that year starred as Judas in Jesus Christ Superstar, which toured Australia before final performances in Hong Kong and Singapore. Doug remained in demand for advertising, recording jingles for major brands like Coke, winning an international award, BHP, Toyota, and Sanyo, as well as station IDs for multiple radio networks. In 1984, he released Sailing, then pursued acting in 1985 with roles in The Body Business, Butterfly Island, and Watch the Shadows Dance. In 1986, he joined the musical revue Soul Man, a tribute to great black artists, which became a hit at Sydney's Kinsellas and allowed him to buy his dream beach house in Collaroy. That year, he also supported the Pointer Sisters on tour, eventually earning their friendship. While touring in 1987, Doug co-wrote the score for the surfing film Wind Warriors and the theme for Willing and Able, released as a single in May. As the live music scene declined, he shifted focus to musical theatre, becoming one of Australia's most in-demand performers. 1988 saw him star in the Motown Story at Kinsellas and produce Destination Moon, a swing-era tribute for World Expo 1988. He also performed at the Foster's Grand Prix Ball, supported Randy Crawford on tour, and revived Soul Man at Sydney's Hilton Hotel. In 1989, Doug played Pap Finn in Big River, starring alongside Drew Forsythe, John Bell, Cameron Daddo, and Karen Knowles. A major success, the show ran for nearly 18 months, with Doug featured on the Australian cast recording. Doug's career in the 1990s was dominated by stage musicals. In late 1990, he played the barrister in Mike Batt's The Hunting of the Snark, which premiered in Sydney with an all-star cast. From 1990 to 1993, he starred as the Big Bopper in Buddy, stealing the show nightly with Chantilly Lace, and in 1994, he produced, directed and starred in the original stars of Buddy in Concert, which toured successfully for 3 years. He also formed a 10-piece band and sold out several Sydney shows. Raven Records released Doug Parkinson In and Out of Focus in 1997, a career retrospective. The following year, he played Vince Fontaine in Grease, the Arena Mega musical, a blockbuster hit, and in 1999, starred as Al Del Vecchio in Happy Days, once again delivering a show-stopping performance, this time with Unchained Melody. Theatre remained his focus into the 2000s. In 2001, he played the Cowardly Lion in The Wizard of Oz, earning the Classic Rock Performer of the Year award at the Mo Awards, and also performed a rare and well-received club tour with Max Merritt. In 2002, he won his second Mo Award and joined the Long Way to the Top concert tour, continuing into 2003. Doug remained active in cabaret and clubs, releasing some Lonesome Picker in 2016. He then toured with a Joe Cocker tribute show from 2017 to 2019, blending Cocker's hits with classics from Ray Charles and the Beatles. In early 2021, Doug was looking forward to singing and touring again, with a series of concerts lined up, starting in Adelaide just 3 days before his passing. Personally, in 1968, Parkinson married Susie Clark, who later became his talent manager. They were together for 53 years and had 2 sons, Daniel and John. Daniel, a musician, played bass for the progressive metal band The Hanging Tree from 1992 to 2002, and also worked as a graphic designer and photographer. His son John, a skilled first-grade footballer, toured internationally and was offered an NRL contract. He now works as a radio announcer, hosting afternoons on 2RE in New South Wales Mid-North Coast. Sadly, on the 15th of March 2021, Doug Parkinson passed away suddenly at his home on Sydney's northern beaches, aged 74. And there you have it. Though Doug Parkinson has passed, his legacy lives on through his unforgettable performances and lasting influence. His commanding vocals and charismatic presence have forever left an unforgettable mark on the Australian music scene. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos just like this. Take care and bye for now.